Welcome back. Now let's do some trig. It's not so hard because we know all the trig integrals. There's not that many of them at this point. So the first one is the cosine of x minus 1. Remember, those are two terms of one function. So and since it's a minus, you can integrate them separately, and you have to integrate them separately. So the integral of cosine is sine. And the integral or antiderivative of 1 with respect to x is x. And we're going to evaluate this from 0 to pi. So here's another little shortcut I'll show you as we're going through. Sometimes the lazy mathematicians don't like to write this whole bracket thing, which is okay. You can just write a straight line like this and it will mean the same thing for you. So now you plug in pi. That's one group. And then minus, you plug in 0. So remember, sine is y. The angle of 0 is here, where that's at 1 comma 0, so y is 0. And pi, that's that angle, so y is still 0. So this is very easy. It works out very nicely. Sine of pi is 0, minus pi. Then we have minus sine of 0 is 0. So that all we're left with is negative pi. This is not an area because it's negative, so we should probably assume that this graph is below the x-axis, at least at some point. If you graph it in your graphing calculator, or go to Wolfram Alpha, and then on the calculator, second calc 7, derivative from 0 to pi, you get this, and the graph was below the x-axis, and look at the answer. It's a negative 3.14. Awesome. Oops. Next question. Secant squared, which normally would be very scary, but we know the integral of secant squared. If I remember, it's, well, I forget, so let's use our little mnemonic here. The derivative of secant was secant tangent, so that's not going to help us. The derivative of tangent was secant. So the derivative of tangent was secant squared, which means the integral of secant squared must be tangent. So that's going to be simple. So 2 is a constant. We can ignore it. The antiderivative or integral of secant squared is tangent. And we're evaluating this integral from 0 to pi over 4. Pi over 4 is a nice number for tangent because remember, tangent is 1 at pi over 4. Also 1 over here at 3 pi over 4 and negative 1 here. And oops, negative 1 on the other two, but we don't care right now. We don't care about this one. So this will give us 2 times tangent pi over 4 minus tangent of 0. So 2 times tangent of pi over 4 we just said was 1. Tangent of 0 is, well, tangent is sine over cosine, and sine of 0 is 0. So this is going to be 0 over 1. Or you just remember tangent goes from the origin. So this is 2 times 1, which is 2. So it shouldn't be a surprise that when I plug this in the calculator, we should get 2. When you plug secant squared, remember you have to plug that as its reciprocal. So it's, instead of 2 secant squared, I typed in 2 over cosine x quantity squared. Second calc 7 from 0 to 4. And I got 2. So that's it. If you were good at indefinite integrals, there's not much more. This is just math. Just take the indefinite integral and plug in your limits and subtract. So good luck practicing, and we'll see you tomorrow.